We are back. Don't ignore the one in the background. Okay? Please provide me with this. My mom is kind of hungry. Wally bro. So there's still ads with no Wi-Fi. This is outrageous. Yeah, I'm trying to click more. Okay, more. Give it. Now we just need 2 more flags, and then Yay! Yes, that. this is the last wave. So I'm replacing this guy with this guy. Warning. If you haven't chosen anyone that fight off balloon zombies, are you sure you want to continue? Completed na. Yay! Nanalo tayo, boys!
Becomes natural fertilizer, helping the rice grow. Meanwhile, the rice plants provide shade, keep the water temperature stable, and
We can
release oxygen
finally
to fish.
This is gonna be a long video. go. And this for a reason. Barahahaha. Barahahaha.
Di ba ba magayin, Brad?
Wow, wow. Wala. Hindi. Kulang yan.
Ang gandang diet mo ah. Kanina yan.
Kulang pa yung ano.
Anong basa nga niya? IRSG.
I heart SG. I don't know. Ah! Ba't dito? GC? Ba't GC sa akin? Basa ko. GC basa ko. GC basa ko. Ikaw ah.
Kita.
Ayun. Ano pa kasi yan?
So, yung pag-text, sabi niya.
Ano yan? Dito na lang. Ah, homeschool. Amerika. Oo, doon. Ah, ha? Ha? Diyos naman! Ang pangit mo!
Yes, ay pangit.
I'm recording! Hmm? 100 lang?
Because they failed the challenge, they were left in the forest. They now had to subdue the horse production team. The
Jesus,
civilized
eat
society.
it or not. Joke lang. You stupid little. There's yes. To do. My dingling is better. No offense. My dingling is Jump scare warning. Yes, puno na. Punong-puno. Ay, yung tabi ko pala. Ancient home. Soup and go. Soup and go. Soup and 6, 7. Mary. Focus on the video. zombie me.
Airbrush, which is pretty impressive. Most of the subjects of these cave paintings were animals. Bison, deer, horses, woolly mammoths. And on rare occasion,
Si Papa, bigay mo.
here's where things get tricky. While it is very possible that cave paintings were included leisure and early leisure, it is believed by some scholars
bayad
that
ng
much older.
tinapay!
For example, most
Papa!
paintings that have been found appear
Bayad ng tinapay, panggas daw ni
has been interpreted by
Dati!
some to prove that these paintings
May
were
bili ma.
intentional and meaningful, rather than simply just being a decorative piece of art. And while the exact meanings or intentions are unknown, we seem to know that they are likely linked to some sort of ritualistic or spiritual beliefs that existed in these stories. Or
2,000.
storytelling. And unfortunately,
300.
but
Yeah.
something else, I would argue whoever was
Magkano ba yan?
paintings and used it in the way that
Te,
I don't know about you, but I would much rather know meaning
Wala.
I would talk about one thing that today's video sponsor, ZocDoc, makes a lot more. That's the case with Doctor's Appointment. ZocDoc is a free website to research and compare
Inayan ng tubig.
from dentistry to eye care to skincare to foot care and almost everything in between. ZocDoc makes it easy to book in-network appointments with more than 250,000 healthcare providers. With ZocDoc, you can filter for doctors by insurance, location, specialties, and even reviews by verified patients so you can choose
I
the
don't
best
know what.
care for you. When you found a doctor you need, you can see their actual appointments. Choose a time that works best for you and instantly make your booking appointment. ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast. At least 24 to 72 hours. No need to call doctor's offices or
I will diddle
ZocDoc lets you
you.
do everything online. You can book an appointment and go on with your day. So stop waiting, stop guessing, and start getting the care you need today. Go to ZocDoc.com/. paintings were playing a game that was known
140.
as Senet. And interestingly, just like how cave paintings weren't just a pastime in the Stone Age, the board game of Senet
We had
wasn't just a
like
pastime in the
that.
Bronze Age. It actually held deep
Or
symbolic and
somehow,
religious meaning. But before we get to the meaning or gameplay, let's just take a look at the
But
board itself. Senet boards vary in quality and
That's
size
not
depending on
in
whose
the
it was. If it was the board of a
on
royal or the
the
board of a
bottom
peasant.
of
But
the
regardless, all boards shared similar properties. A Senet board
bar
contained 3 rows
where
of 10 squares, for a total of 30
continuation
squares.
goes.
That is, on the top.
Look.
Some Senet boards were flat, although
It's
many
low.
Senet boards themselves were actually a
And
box which contained a sliding compartment which would be used to hold the game
below
pieces themselves, which is really
are
quite interesting. And while
with
for most
ladders.
regular Senet boards, they were
And
typically rather portable or at least handheld, Senet boards that were owned by
we
the
might
royals were
do this.
stationary and
We
looked like
only
tables
have
themselves and were highly
done
decorated.
7. Sticks would have a flat side and a rounded side. When you would throw these sticks, you would have significant special meanings. For example, the 15th square on the board was known as the halfway point, or the house of thought. It symbolized the start of the game's critical What it really meant was landing here would give Guys,
you a
I
free
think
turn.
we are
Square
good.
27 was known as the House of Waters. It was actually a trap. If you landed on Square 27, your pawn essentially trapped and would be sent all the way back to Square 15, or even to the start of the familiar Square 28 was known as the House of Swords. And if you landed on this place, you would have to throw exactly 3 on the sticks to be able to advance. And Square 29 was known as the House of Two. And if you didn't throw exactly in 2, you would be sent back to the halfway point of Square 15 once again. And finally, Square 30 was known as the House of Force. It was the final exit space, and if you could successfully land here with your pawn, you were essentially symbolizing the soul of your pawn united with the gods and achieving eternal life. As you can tell by my depiction of the gameplay alone, this game was deeply symbolic to the ancient Egyptians. If it wasn't already obvious enough, this game was more or less a representation of the soul of Africa.
Wow.
That's how the car works, essentially serving as the world's most difficult job. Unlike the dramatic exact deal with the transition. New ways to have fun. And in my opinion, this is one of the coolest pastimes we've discussed so far. One of the most notable civilizations from the Iron Age was ancient Greece. And with ancient Greece came the Olympic Games. One of the most culturally significant events at the time that still
I
remains
ran
to
out
this
of
very
money
day. Even in the
from
modern day,
this.
with all of the entertainment and luxuries that we have, the Olympic Games are still one of the most fun things to observe and I'm sure participate in if you are so inclined. However, during ancient
just
Greece, when life
gonna
was a lot more boring and the Olympic Games were a lot
play
more intense, I can
with
only
ya.
imagine how much fun it would be to be in
Wait.
a live crowd of the ancient Greek Olympics. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, so let me give some context. The Olympic Games started in
Wait.
776 BC, and they were initially meant to bring together the
Wait.
Greek city-states for some
Wait.
peaceful competition and celebration
Oh,
of athleticism and religious
Yeah,
devotion.
we're
The
just
Olympic
gonna
Games
play
themselves were actually held in honor of Zeus, the king of gods. And it was for that reason that the Olympic Games were deeply religiously important and also culturally significant. Back in the Iron Age, only free men could compete in the Olympic Games, meaning no slaves, no prisoners, and no women. And interestingly, at most Olympic Games, most women weren't even able to watch the Olympic Games due to the sheer amount of nudity that was present during some of the events, which is interesting. Some of the earliest Olympic Games consisted of weightlifting, foot races, and combat sports, including wrestling and all-out, no-holds-barred, no-rules fight that allowed eye gouging, biting, and often resulted in
guys,
death.
I'm
But in case
AFK
watching
a
ancient
little
Greek
bit.
oiled-up buff guys
Bye-bye.
do sports wasn't enough, there was also another type of event that took place in ancient Greece during the Iron Age that was also pretty interesting and possibly just as cool. That being the drinking contests at symposia. You see, during ancient Greece, there was things known as symposia, which were essentially formal gatherings of intellectuals to speak about philosophy, religion, and other topics. And as the symposia grew in popularity and became a bigger and bigger event, they added more games, more food, and eventually added more festivities, with one of the most notable being the drinking contest, which, in my opinion, were simple but hilarious. While the original purpose of this event was to discuss philosophy and religion, by the end of the day, it would quickly devolve into a drunken yelling match amongst all of the
Okay,
participants
Mano.
of this random drinking game.
I'ma
How it worked
be
was essentially
quiet
like an
for
ancient
this
hot dog
one.
eating contest. A group of ancient Greeks would line up beside each other. They would all be given a certain number of glasses of wine, and the entire goal of the contest was to either drink the most wine, stay sober the longest, or keep drinking the longest without throwing up or passing out. And it's unsurprising that there is recorded history of many of these events turning extremely rowdy, and in some cases even resulting in death due to alcohol poisoning. Almost hilariously, scholars believe that these drinking contests were likely a way to prove masculinity and endurance, even though in most cases they typically just ended in embarrassment. And while during the Olympic Games, Olympians, at least those who won, were highly regarded and granted glory and fame, it's hard to say whatever came of the winners of the drinking contests of ancient Greece. But yeah, if you ever got teleported to ancient Greece and were looking for something fun to do, two notable options are going to the Olympic Games if you happen to be there at the right time, or at the very least, power chugging wine and seeing where the night takes you. The Classical Era. The Classical Era is a relatively short and niche era of history, and for that reason, it's going to receive a relatively short section, although I figured it was worth mentioning for a few reasons. During the Classical Era, or the Classical Antiquity, specifically in Greece and Rome, live entertainment was at the forefront of fun, and was becoming exponentially more complex, important, and organized. Greek theater and festivals eventually grew so much in popularity they were considered an essential part of daily life, and participation in these live events by locals was essentially mandatory. Because many Greeks were able to have leisure time due to the fact that slave labor was doing a lot of grunt work in ancient Greek society, thence the upper classes could not only go to these events but help support the events to make them larger. Although, of course, none of those funds would go to the people putting on the show, just the ones you saw on stage. Regardless, besides the development of theater in ancient Greece, we also saw the development of work-life balance over in Rome. Basically, for the first time ever, the Romans began to separate the concepts of work time and leisure time, and they even created individual words for each of these tasks. Otium was the word for leisure, and negotium was the word for business or work. And it's believed that with these words came strong meaning, and believed that when it was time to work, you worked and only worked. However, when it was time for leisure, you did absolutely nothing strenuous or laborious, showing that even thousands of years ago, at least in Rome, having a work-life balance was not only a recognized benefit to society, but something that was strongly believed. On top of the Romans' work-life balance, they also increased their entertainment over time as well, with one of the most notable examples of that being the opening of the Colosseum in 80 AD, where at the Colosseum, they would typically hold 100 live events per year, almost one every 3 days. Meaning that if you lived in Rome during this time, multiple times per week you could go to watch a live event and be treated to live entertainment for hours. And while at this point theater and live entertainment is nothing new, I figured it'd be quickly worth mentioning the documented history of the work-life balance, as well as the development of live events in the Mediterranean. The medieval era. During the medieval era, civilization and society really started to resemble the one we know today, although with a few unique differences. And while there are countless interesting hobbies and pastimes that people would have done for fun during the medieval era, there are two that are very specific to the medieval era I'd like to quickly discuss. For starters, when you think of the medieval era, it's almost impossible to not think of medieval knights. And what are medieval knights possibly most known for? Well, of course, jousting. And similar to the gladiatorial games that they had in Rome, or the Olympic Games they had in Greece, jousting in medieval Europe was an extremely popular and culturally significant live sporting event that would not only make legends, but also take lives. Jousting, for those of you who were literally born yesterday, is essentially two knights on horseback charging at each other with large wooden spears, or lances as they're called. The entire point of this game or sport was to unhorse your opponent, or essentially knock them off of their horse. And this entire activity was a test of skill, strength, and courage to ultimately prove your worthiness and your knightly honor. Jousting, for those who participated, I'm sure it was a blast, at least for those who were good at it. Although, since there was more people that were spectating than actually participating, I'm going to speak about it from a spectator's perspective. Jousting tournaments, wherever they were held, always drew a major crowd. And they were typically held at royal occasions, at the site of military victories, or even...
It's time for Energen. Sa 10 piso lang, kompleto na ang breakfast. Complete sa nutrition. Busog ka pa with 50% more cereals. Gawing kompleto ang breakfast with Energen every day.
victories, or even at religious festivals. And even though during medieval Europe, the economic divide in society was jarring, jousting was one sport that could bring all classes of society together. Because literally everybody from the bottom of the economic food chain to the top enjoyed this sport deeply. Even after gunpowder was introduced into warfare, making blade combat less and less effective, jousting still remained popular as a symbolic event, still of honor and of medieval history. Personally, I'm not sure if I would have had more fun watching medieval jousting over the Greek Olympic Games or even a Greek drinking competition. However, I'm sure that medieval jousting events would have had their own unique flair that I would have enjoyed if I was there in the time. But I do think this is one of the first examples where the pastime I chose in a future section is actually less entertaining than the one before it. But that's just me. What would you guys rather watch? Some of the original Olympic Games or authentic medieval jousting? Honestly, you can't go wrong, but I'm curious what you would rather watch and why. But if you're going to leave a comment on this video, you might as well leave a like as well. And if you're going to like this video, you might as well subscribe if you haven't already, because I post videos like this every single week. And if you want to stay up to date with the content I'm posting, subscribing is the best way to be informed. Transparently, I haven't made one of my time period videos in a long time. Although, if this is something that you guys would like more of, I'd be more than happy to make more of these era-based videos. The best way to let me know that you want more content like this is either by leaving a like or leave a comment below. And I'll do my absolute best to make the videos that I know you guys would love to see. But with that, let's finish out this video. The early modern era. Even though the early modern era only consists of roughly 300 years of history, because it is placed in a time of such massive human and societal development, there is literally an endless plethora of unique pastimes I can talk about for people having fun in the early modern era. And it's for that reason that I'm not going to go super in-depth about any one activity, and I'm going to kind of do a speed round of a bunch of unique activities that people were just doing in the early modern era that I figured would be worth mentioning. During the 1800s in Europe, specifically Victorian England, an interesting trend and hobby arose known as mummy unrollings. During this time in history, there was a massive massive cultural obsession with Egypt and Europe, and general ancient civilizations as a whole. And one of the most unique forms of entertainment that came out of this obsession and public curiosity was the public unwrapping of ancient Egyptian mummified remains. At first, these mummy rolling events were typically only held or experienced by people that worked in the scientific field, as these mummies were hard to come by and the bodies themselves were controlled. But interestingly, after the 1832 Autonomy Act in Britain, doctors were granted more legal access to human bodies for dissection and study. And as an unintentional result, this allowed doctors to essentially more freely distribute mummified bodies, which were eventually used for mummy rollings in hospitals, scientific institutions, and in some cases even private parties where tickets were sold, making the event much less about science and much more about pure curiosity and morbid entertainment. During the early modern era over in America, people weren't necessarily unraveling mummies, but they were playing with fire, or at least electricity. During the late part of the 18th century, in America and parts of Europe, public fascination with electricity began to grow like wildfire. And the result of this was electrotherapy parties. Like the money unwrappings, these electrotherapy parties were kind of branded as some sort of pseudo-scientific event, but it was really more so just to satisfy a curiosity and to have some fun. Although in this case, in a much less morbid way. Electrotherapy parties would essentially consist of a bunch of friends hanging out, playing with electricity to have a bit of a shock. No pun intended. People at the party would willingly subject themselves to mild electric shocks, typically static shock, for both amusement and suspected health benefits. People that commonly threw electrotherapy parties were either doctors, amateur scientists, or just rich people who were looking for something fun. But regardless, the intentions were the same. They wanted to show their friends how they could make their hair stand up, and they wanted to show how they could make a small strike of lightning with their finger touching a piece of metal. By modern standards, electrotherapy parties sound absolutely insane, but it is pretty cool and honestly a bit cute to see innocent curiosity in electricity. It is super fascinating to see how much our relationship with electricity has evolved over the last few hundred years. But if you imagine doctors, scientists, and rich guys like 300 years ago just sitting in a dark room with a balloon, rubbing it on their heads, and touching it just to kind of giggle and laugh all about it, like, that's hilarious. But in case those two weren't enough, two other interesting things that went on, specifically during the Victorian era in Victorian England, was hair collecting and headless portraits. Headless portraits were essentially just a photography fad that was born out of the fascination of the eerie and unusual in Victorian England. How this would work was photographers would manipulate how early cameras would work to essentially take a picture of an individual as if they were holding their own head in their hands. This was a very early Snapchat filter, or a very early version of Photoshop. It's kind of funny how this was a big trend hundreds of years ago. It's cool to see, once again, how far photography and creative media has evolved over time. And in regards to hair collecting, many women in Victorian England were extremely sentimental, and human hair had deep sentimental value. For that reason, it was saved and used for crafts, or even in jewelry making as keepsakes to basically keep their loved ones around them, which is a lot more sweet when you hear that context rather than just hearing hair collecting. The modern era. In the modern era, the ways that people have fun and entertain themselves varies drastically. The one notable and relatable example I can give is either laying on your couch or laying in your bed, watching a stick figure who's not qualified to talk about anything, essentially talk about everything, on a media platform known as YouTube. Seriously though, it is crazy to see exactly how much fun, leisure, and entertainment has evolved over the last roughly 10,000 years. And while this video was a massive oversimplification of a lot of different complex topics and historical events, I hope it at least gives you a good idea of a few unique examples of how people entertain themselves in different eras of history. And while I probably don't need to tell you how people have fun in the modern day, I think a few notable examples that are relevant to this video are the rise of cinema, and with that, the rise of independent entertainment, social media platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Thousands of years ago, we saw the introduction of gladiatorial games and massive large-scale theatrical plays. And interestingly, we still have very close remnants of those in the modern day. We have UFC, we have WWE, we have movies, and we still very much so have live-action plays. If anything, one of the most unique forms of entertainment and fun in the modern era are video games. And while this form of entertainment is probably the most unique compared to all of the others we discussed, you could say that they very much still have a strong lineage in board games, which in themselves originated over 4,000 years ago. Which is cool to see exactly how much development has happened throughout human history, and how much of the things we use today are actually based in ancient history. But that's enough yapping from me. If you guys love this video, don't forget to leave a like or comment below telling me you want more videos like these. And since we're speaking about video games, check out the video on screen right now. It's a brand new video I dropped on my new gaming channel. So if you love gaming content or you just want to watch some more bro, check out the video on screen right now. Thank you bros so much for watching this video. And as always, trust you bro.
Uy, bagong skin. Solid.
There is a room on the world's newest cruise that has a slide, a private balcony, a movie theater, a personal butler, and countless bedrooms. I have no business going on a luxurious cruise to stay in this room. However, my wife Haley has a dream of becoming an author, and she just got copies of her first book ever. She won't let me read it because I haven't finished a book in over a year, and I've started a lot of books. So I have a plan to steal one of them, replace it with a fake copy, read the entire book on the cruise, all so I can surprise her with my review when I get home. So yes, going on this adventure of staying in every single room on the most expensive cruise ship would be ridiculous. But it might just make Haley think I'm the best husband ever. I packed my bags and flew to the pickup zone for the cruise, where I boarded and made my way to the cheapest room on this entire boat. So this is the economy room on this cruise ship, which is crazy because look at this place. This is a fancy room. This is a nice room. I'm gonna jump on that bed. It's a good bed. I like it. This room also has a full bathroom. And look at this. You can control all of the lights from this touchscreen. Most people go on a cruise not for the room.
Dalhin mo lahat ng,
Each one
laruan
has
ko.
different perks and activities on the ship. And obviously this one has the most affordable one. This boat has officially departed. We are somewhere in the ocean at this point. So before I start reading this book, I'm going to look for something fun to do. It's going to be something fun.
Nagpapaalam nga.